Hey everybody, Daniel Fusco here, and welcome to today's 2-minute message. You know, every teacher and every person has certain go-to ideas that are really big for them. One of those for me is a simple statement that I've said a million times, that life is messy, but Jesus is real. And I even wrote this book called Honestly a number of years back, and if you haven't read it, if you felt like reading it, where I really explore this idea of getting real about Jesus and our messy lives, that Jesus is real in the midst of our messy lives. But the reason this is so important to me is I realize that every single one of us, our lives are messy. And that word messy is good because it doesn't mean our lives are bad. It doesn't mean that everything's the worst possible thing. What it means is that things just don't have a tendency to work out the way that we want it to. Messes get made all over the place. And the issue that all of us have is that in the midst of lives that are messy, does that mess make us bitter or better? What that means is that as we interact with the situations of our lives, many of us are just finding ourselves get bitter because nothing is actually quite working out in the way that we want. Things are just messy everywhere. And I always say that the only way to ensure that you don't get bitter, but you get better, is to remember that Jesus is right in the middle of the mess. Jesus is the Lord of the mess. And in the midst of the mess, God is not absent, but Jesus is in the middle of all of that, leveraging the mess to point us to Him and to show us what He's up to and to teach us that true spiritual maturity is being joyful in the midst of a messy world, to being hopeful in the midst of things not working out. That's a true sign of spiritual maturity. And so we want to realize that our messes, they matter. And because Jesus uses those messes in really powerful ways. And so I want you to share this video because whether we like it or not, everyone's got messy lives. And we want to get better in the midst of the messy circumstances we find ourselves in. And in the comment section, I want to invite you to share a little bit of your mess so that we can pray for one another. It is a powerful thing when we're willing to say, hey, look, this is an area that isn't really quite what I thought it would be. And then we invite Jesus to show Himself strong in our lives and in the midst of these middle of the mess. So I want you to share some of your mess in the comments. And then as we're praying for people, I want you to feel free to like their comment. Doesn't mean that we like your mess. It means that we are praying for you. And feel free to encourage one another in the midst of it as we see Jesus doing His transformational work in messy circumstances. God bless you today.